People always talk about the moment your life changes forever, but they never tell you how ordinary that moment feels right before everything goes wrong. My name is Anne. I'm 33 and I've always been the kind of woman people glance at and assume she's got everything figured out. And honestly, I used to believe that lie too. I had a peaceful home, a stable marriage, and a husband, Anderson, who cared for me in all the quiet, solid ways that actually matter. He wasn't a man of fireworks or grand gestures, just steady, grounded, dependable. The kind of man other women brag about and secretly wish they had for themselves. But here's the part I'm ashamed to admit. Even a perfect life can have cracks you don't notice until something, or someone, slides right through them. And that someone should have never mattered, should have never gotten close, should have never had the power to destroy everything I once thought was unshakable. But he did. And the worst part? I was the one who opened the door. So before you decide what kind of person you think I am, stay with me. Because the truth I'm about to tell is messy, painful, and nothing like the stories people whisper behind closed doors. And by the time you hear it all, you might understand how fast one wrong choice can take a perfect life and burn it to the ground. I never pictured myself becoming the villain of my own story. I never imagined being the wife who betrays a man who trusted her without question. But loneliness does strange things to your mind. It bends you, warps your judgment. And if you sit with that loneliness long enough, you start justifying things you'd never accept in the light. That's how Willie slipped into my life. Willie was 49. Older, smooth, charming in the kind of way that makes you feel noticed even when you try not to be. He worked as a business partner in a company ours frequently collaborated with. The first day we shook hands, he held my gaze a second too long, and for the first time in years I felt like someone was actually listening to me. Anderson loved me, I'm sure of that. But somewhere along the way, comfort turned into silence. Routine hardened into distance. We barely talked. We barely joked. We barely touched. With Willie, it felt like being shaken awake from a sleep I didn't know I was in. Compliments. Attention. The warmth of being wanted. It started quietly, harmless, I told myself. A spark inside the dark. Then harmless became flirting. Flirting became lunches. Lunches became late-night messages. And eventually, the line between wrong and too far disappeared completely, and I stepped over it without looking back. The first time I went to Willie's house, I swore it would be the last. The second time, I told myself it didn't mean anything. By the fourth, fifth, I wasn't telling myself anything at all. I was just running from reality, pretending there wouldn't be consequences. I thought I was clever, careful. I thought Anderson would never suspect a thing, because he trusted me too much to imagine I could ever hurt him like this. I was painfully, disastrously wrong. The day everything started unraveling is burned into my memory. I remember my clothes, the smell of Willie cologne on the sheets, the sunlight coming through his curtains. I'd left work early, told Anderson I was drowning in end-of-month reports, when in reality I was wrapped up in someone else's bed, pretending I wasn't destroying my own life one lie at a time. As the afternoon crept too close to evening, I jolted up, panicked. Anderson thought I was still at the office. I scrambled to get dressed, smoothing my hair, wiping away every trace of the last few hours. I backed out of Willie's driveway with my heart punching the inside of my chest. Guilt is strange. It doesn't hit you while you're doing the wrong thing. It waits until the second you leave, then crushes you all at once. I kept telling myself the same plan. Go home, shower, pretend it was a normal day. I had done it before. I could do it again. Then my phone rang. Anderson. My hand trembled as I answered. His voice sounded normal, too normal. He asked what I was doing, and instead of just answering simply, my nerves took over. I over-explained. My voice was breathless, shaky. Even I could hear how suspicious I sounded. Then he said the words that froze every muscle in my body. I'm heading home early. I finished work sooner than I expected. It felt like my heart slid down into my stomach. Every lie I'd stacked up over the past weeks suddenly felt like a house of cards about to collapse. I forced a casual tone, told him I was driving toward the store near our house. We hung up, and before I could even exhale, I noticed something in my rearview mirror. His car. Right behind me. On the same road. miles away from anywhere he should have been. At first I thought I was imagining it, but no, there he was. My throat tightened. My palms were slick against the steering wheel. Panic spread through me like ice water. Then he said calmly, almost as if he was testing me, "I just passed the rest area." The rest area that was literally right behind me. My body reacted before my brain could. I slammed the gas pedal. I didn't think. I didn't breathe. I just sped, like running could somehow erase the truth. My pulse thudded in my ears. My mind scrambled through excuses. Did he follow me? Did he recognize my car? Was he waiting for me to slip up? I could feel the truth circling around us like a predator. By the time I reached the store parking lot, my whole body was shaking. I parked crooked, stepped out, checked my reflection, fixed my hair, forced myself to breathe like nothing was wrong. When Anderson pulled in seconds later, my stomach nearly twisted itself in knots. He got out slowly. His eyes searched my face. There was something different in his look, something quiet, sharp, unsettling. Inside the store, he asked the kind of questions that sound casual to anyone else, but I heard the suspicion beneath every word. Where had I been? What exactly did I do today? Why was I on this side of town? Every lie felt heavier than the last. In the restroom, I didn't even use it. I just stood at the sink, the water running to hide my shaky breathing. I was terrified he could smell Willie on me. Terrified he could see guilt on my skin like a stain. When we got home, he asked again about my day. I lied again. His stare lingered an extra second. That tiny pause felt like a spotlight burning straight through me. That night in bed, he lay stiff and distant. I stared at the ceiling, wishing I could rewrite everything, wishing I could stop the version of myself that had led us here. But wishing doesn't undo betrayal. Anderson's trust, his unshakable, blind trust, had cracked. Over the next week, he watched me differently. Not yelling, not accusing, just observing. Quietly, meticulously. A message here, a question there. Phone calls at unexpected times. And every single time, guilt stabbed me like a needle. Still, I kept lying, kept sneaking away, kept falling deeper into Willie's world. The night I told Anderson I had to work late, that familiar dread crept up my spine again. His tone was calm, too calm. But I ignored it. I wanted the escape too badly. I drove to Willie's house once again. Warm hands, sweet words, that intoxicating feeling of being wanted. But deep down, every step through his door felt like stepping further and further out of my marriage, and towards something I wouldn't be able to undo. Around 4:45 p.m., I heard a car roll past outside Willie's house. The sound made me freeze mid-breath. My stomach lurched so hard it felt like it flipped over. Willie peeked through the blinds, glanced once and shrugged it off. "Just someone driving by," he muttered. But something about that moment felt wrong, heavy, like a shadow brushing over my skin. I stayed longer than I should have, until the sun began sinking and the sky turned that bruised color just before dusk. I forced myself to leave, telling myself Anderson would wonder if I stayed too long. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have imagined, was that Anderson was already out there somewhere, driving around, searching, connecting pieces I thought I had hidden well. When I finally got home that night, guilt forced me into overcompensation. I brought home his favorite Chinese takeout and tried to act lighthearted, cheerful, as if good food could erase suspicion. I leaned in to kiss him. He turned his face slightly. Not enough to be obvious, but enough to slice me open. It felt like someone slid a cold blade straight into my chest. Still, I pretended everything was normal. I had no idea, none, that earlier that same day he had seen my car parked in Willie's driveway. Not once, twice. I had no idea he'd taken photos. I didn't know he was already unraveling our marriage quietly, preparing his exit while I continued lying. I didn't know the damage was done long before the final blow landed. But I was about to learn. The next morning, Anderson was strangely gentle, almost soft. He kissed my forehead before work, something he hadn't done in months. He even sent me a couple of sweet little texts asking how my day was going. I should have felt dread right then. I should have realized kindness can be a warning. But instead, I let myself believe a lie, that maybe he was trying, that maybe he sensed the distance and wanted to bridge it. Meanwhile, he already had everything he needed. Every answer, every picture, every confirmation. He had his plan. And I had no idea he was preparing to walk out of my life for good. That afternoon, he told me he'd be leaving early the next morning for a customer site visit. His voice was calm, casual, but the second he mentioned being gone all day, I felt that awful twist deep in my stomach. Not guilt, opportunity. His vague details, the timing, the opening. My mind immediately went to Willie. I didn't want to admit it even to myself, but I was already calculating, already planning. If Anderson wasn't home, I could see Willie again. I didn't know yet that this would be the last selfish thought I would ever have as a married woman. I pretended to be casual, nodding, asking a few questions, even acting supportive. Inside, I felt relief mixed with something darker, anticipation. I told myself I'd use the day to think about my marriage, about my life, about what I really wanted. But deep down, I already knew my actions were speaking louder than anything I claimed to be figuring out. The next morning, Anderson left before sunrise. The moment his car slipped out of the driveway, an empty, echoing ache settled in my chest. Not sadness, not guilt, just a hollow space where my conscience should have been. I moved through my morning like a robot. Shower, makeup, coffee, every step mechanical. I called my workplace, pretending I needed the day to finish a project from home. Another lie added to the tower of lies I'd been balancing for months. But something felt different. The air felt thicker. My chest felt tight, like some invisible pressure was building and wouldn't let me breathe properly. By early afternoon, without fully deciding to, I found myself driving toward Willie's neighborhood. My fingers were cold around the steering wheel. My heartbeat was too loud, thudding against my ribs. The entire drive, this voice whispered in my head, "Turn around. Don't go. Text Anderson. Fix this. It's not too late." But I didn't listen. I drove all the way to that familiar house with the Ram truck sitting out front. Willie opened the door the same way he always did, confident smirk, hands instantly on me like he owned me. I tried to mirror his energy, but something was misaligned inside me. Something felt off. I couldn't shake the tension crawling under my skin. My smile felt stiff. My stomach felt knotted. Even in his arms, I was miles away in my head, checking my phone, flinching at small noises, feeling watched by something I couldn't see. Willie noticed. "What's with you today?" he asked as he tucked a strand of my hair behind my ear. "Nothing," I lied, forcing a soft laugh. "Just tired." He didn't buy it. Truthfully, neither did I. I stayed for a couple hours, my body present but my mind constantly spiraling. When I finally got dressed and headed out, Willie kissed me goodbye, same as always. But this time, I couldn't kiss him back properly. My stomach twisted. The air felt heavy, charged, warning me something was coming. And I didn't know, while I was inside pretending everything was fine, that Anderson had already driven past once again. He'd seen my car parked there. Again. He took more pictures. He had already packed his suitcase. He had already checked into a hotel. He had already decided he was done with me. By the time I reached home, the sky was turning orange. My chest felt tight and my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I rehearsed a fake explanation in my head. Spreadsheets, meetings, overtime, preparing another story to cover more betrayal. I walked through the door ready to lie. Then my phone rang. Anderson. He never called when he was supposedly at a customer site. He always texted. That alone sent a cold chill rippling down my spine. I picked up, trying to sound light. "Hey babe, everything okay?" His voice wasn't Anderson's voice. It was flat, dead, emotionless. "What are you doing?" he asked. Everything inside me froze. My brain scrambled to assemble a believable sentence. I'm working on the monthly close," I stuttered. "I'm in a conference room." Silence. A long, suffocating silence. Then he said it. "You're lying." My throat closed up. "What? Anderson, what do you—" "I know where you are. I know who you're with. And I know exactly what you're doing." Every nerve in my body went numb. My knees almost gave out. My hand shook so violently my phone nearly slipped from my fingers. "And just so we're clear," he added, voice turning colder than ice, "you're either screwing him right now, or you just finished screwing him. I couldn't breathe, couldn't speak, couldn't even think. And I'm done with you, he said softly, too softly. I won't be home when you get there. And then he hung up. I stood alone in our kitchen with my phone still in my hand, trembling so hard I could barely hold it. My chest felt crushed, like the air had been ripped out of the room. The silence around me roared. For 20 full minutes I didn't move. My mind spun in circles. How long has he known? What did he see? How much does he have? How do I fix this? When the shock finally cracked open, panic flooded in. I called. No answer. I texted. Nothing. I called again and again, my words tumbling out in frantic pieces. It's not what you think. Please, listen, I can explain. Please just answer. But he didn't. He was already gone. I kept calling him long after my voice started cracking. Please talk to me. Please pick up. We can fix this. Just come home. I love you. Please. Please. But nothing came back. No vibration. No ringtone. No sign he was even looking at the screen. So I called again, and again, and again. That entire night, I poured my desperation into voicemails. Some whispered, some drenched in panic, some rambling apologies that didn't even make sense. A few were calm, practiced, hopeful. Others were ugly, broken, hysterical. By the time the clock hit midnight, my voice was shredded. My body was trembling like it couldn't hold itself together anymore. I walked around the house in circles, stopping every few seconds to stare at the front door, praying it would swing open and he'd come in yelling, crying, throwing accusations. Anything would have been better than the crushing silence that swallowed everything. He never came home. And sometime around that hollow, sleepless hour, something inside me sank with a sickening finality. He knew. He wasn't guessing. He wasn't suspicious. He wasn't piecing clues together. He knew. The next morning proved it. Both our families called, hours apart but all with the same devastation in their voices. My mom sobbed like she was grieving a funeral. His mother didn't even try to hide her rage. His father didn't speak at all, just heavy, disappointed breathing that felt like it weighed 100 pounds. My sister tried to soothe me, but her voice cracked every few seconds. No one was on my side anymore. Not even me. By noon, my stomach felt like it was turning inside out. I was dizzy, shaking, dehydrated, but unable to eat anything. All I could hear was the echo of his voice from the night before. I'm done with you. Cold. Unshakable. Final. I knew exactly what those 4 words meant. He wasn't coming home that night. Or the next night. Or maybe not ever again. Still, I couldn't stop. I kept calling him, kept texting him, pouring apologies into essays and then into short, frantic messages and finally into voice notes that were mostly just me sobbing. He didn't answer a single one. By the time his silence stretched into the next day, something in my chest snapped. Not dramatically, but in a slow, collapsing way that left me barely able to breathe. I felt hollow. Like someone had scooped the middle out of me and left the shell behind. My mind kept replaying every stupid decision, every selfish moment, every lie I had told without blinking. And all I could think was, how could I destroy the one person who believed in me the most? By the 3rd day, even my friends got involved. Some yelled at me for being reckless. Some tried weak excuses on my behalf. Some went silent because they didn't know what to say. But none of their voices mattered. Nothing mattered except the empty space where Anderson used to be. And then came the phone call that broke what little was left of me. His sister. The morning after she called, I woke up on the living room floor, still holding my phone like I had fallen asleep mid-dial. My eyes were so swollen I could barely pry them open. I hadn't slept. I hadn't eaten. I hadn't even stood up except to try calling him again over and over, until my voice was nothing but a harsh whisper. Her words replayed in a loop, stabbing deeper every time. He's done with you, Anne. He said he'll never see you again. You broke him. Hearing that from someone who used to call me her bonus sister, it crushed something fundamental inside me. I expected yelling. I expected disappointment. I expected someone to unload every insult in the book. But the finality in her voice, like a door slamming shut forever, that was worse than everything else combined. I kept replaying his words from that night. I'm done with you. The terrifying part was the control in his voice. The calm. No shouting. No cursing. No anger. Just certainty. And that certainty hurt worse than any explosion ever could. Around 3 in the afternoon, my phone buzzed. For a split second, hope shot through me like electricity. I grabbed it so fast I almost dropped it. His mother. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to let it ring out. I didn't think I could survive another verbal beating. But I answered anyway. She didn't scream. She didn't insult me. Her voice was icy, sharp enough to cut through bone. And, what were you thinking? I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. How do you explain something you don't even understand yourself? I trusted you, she said. We all did. And you threw away 8 years. For what? A fling with a client. Hearing her say it so plainly made it burn twice as much. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know why. You don't get to not know, she snapped. You had a husband who loved you. A good man. I broke. Completely. There was no defense. No justification. No excuse that wouldn't sound pathetic. After a long exhale, one that felt like she was releasing the last bit of hope she had ever had for me, she said, "If you care about him at all, leave him alone. Let him heal. Let him go." And she ended the call before I could respond. I curled into myself on the couch, clutching my chest like I could physically hold my breaking pieces together. The pain wasn't emotional anymore, it was physical. It hurt to breathe. Time blurred after that. Hours, days. I lost track. Anderson never wrote back. Never called. Never even sent a single word. He cut off every path between us without hesitation. And that silence, the silence of someone who once loved you more than anything choosing not to speak to you ever again, was louder than any fight we had ever had. My friends checked in from time to time. Some blamed me. Some tried comforting me. Some avoided me because they didn't know what to say. But none of it mattered. Because the only voice I wanted to hear was the one I had shattered. The only voice I wanted to hear was the one person who had made it painfully clear he never wanted to hear mine again. For 2 straight days, I spiraled, calling, crying, pacing, until I felt like I was losing my grip on reality. And then, out of nowhere, Anderson's father finally texted me. Just one sentence. He moved out. Please don't try to find him. It didn't hit like anger. It hit like truth. Cold, hard, undeniable truth. He wasn't taking space. He wasn't calming down. He wasn't coming back after a long walk. He had left. Truly left. He walked away from our home, from our life, from everything we built, without even needing time to think it over. And I couldn't blame him. If I were him, I would have run from me too. The week that followed was the darkest I'd ever lived through. I barely slept because every time my eyes closed, I saw the look on his face that night, hurt, hollow, and done. Our life, the routines, the jokes, the plans, it all kept replaying like a film that was burning at the edges, melting into nothing. Food meant nothing. Water felt sour in my mouth. My clothes hung off me like they belonged to someone else. My hands never stopped shaking. I cried until my body physically refused to produce tears. And then came the blow that shattered what little strength I had left. An email from a lawyer. His lawyer. He was filing for divorce. Seeing it written so plainly, no emotion, no hesitation, felt like a blade pushing straight through my chest. I fell to the bathroom floor and sobbed so violently I couldn't stand. Divorce. 8 years. Ending with a stack of documents delivered through attorneys instead of words between 2 people who once loved each other enough to promise forever. I tried reaching out, calls, texts, long messages where I confessed everything, begged for forgiveness, begged for a chance to explain. He didn't reply. He didn't even open them. And that's when it finally clicked. I wasn't losing my husband because of the divorce. I had lost him long before those papers existed. I lost him the moment I let someone else touch me. The moment I traded his trust for a selfish rush. The moment I became a stranger to the man who had given me everything. Anderson wasn't punishing me, he was saving himself from the version of me he didn't recognize anymore. When his family eventually blocked me, I turned to my own. My parents were devastated, ashamed, heartbroken, confused. My mom cried like she was mourning a death. My dad couldn't even look me in the eyes. Even my sister, who tried so hard to comfort me, admitted she couldn't understand what I'd done. Truth was, neither could I. Weeks blurred together. Anderson stayed completely silent. No calls. No messages. No accidental sightings. Nothing. The divorce moved faster than I expected. He didn't argue over a single thing. He didn't ask for money or property. He just wanted out, as fast and as cleanly as possible. That's when I realized, a person only becomes this quiet when their heart is truly done. People yell when they still care. They argue when they still want something to be fixed. Silence means they've already let go. When the papers were finally signed, I wasn't even there. Our lawyers handled everything. I asked mine if Anderson said anything about me, anything at all. He said he wants this over, he replied. Those 5 words destroyed whatever was left of me. After the divorce, the loneliness became suffocating. I couldn't sleep. Food tasted like nothing. Every noise made me think he was coming home. I quit my job because facing people felt impossible. I locked myself inside the house like it was a tomb of memories I couldn't escape. Reality started slipping. I'd wake up at dawn convinced he was brushing his teeth beside me. I'd reach for his side of the bed and find only cold sheets. I'd hear a car door outside and think just for a second that it was him. But it never was. One afternoon, my body simply gave up. I collapsed in the kitchen and my sister found me hours later, barely conscious. The hospital diagnosis was blunt. Severe dehydration, malnutrition, acute stress. They immediately admitted me and then transferred me to a rehab facility because my mind was unraveling just as fast as my body. At one point, Anderson's mother called him to tell him I had collapsed. A part of me hoped, stupidly, that he might visit. He didn't. He told her, "She's not my responsibility anymore." That sentence shattered the last intact piece of me. Weeks passed in rehab. Therapy. Medication. Daily sessions trying to untangle the mess I had become. I learned that guilt doesn't just sit on your shoulders, it lives in your stomach, your chest, your bones. Regret becomes a living thing, gnawing at you from the inside. And losing someone because of your own betrayal is a pain that doesn't fade, it settles in. Even after weeks of therapy, one truth refused to budge. I missed him every single second. I wrote him letters, pages and pages, pouring out every apology, every explanation, every ounce of remorse. I never sent them. I knew he wouldn't read them. Writing them was the only way I could breathe. I didn't blame him for leaving. I didn't blame him for hating me. I didn't blame him for disappearing. The only person I held responsible was myself. Months later, after I was finally discharged, I heard through mutual friends that Anderson had bought farmland in the countryside. That he left his job, traded the city for open skies, animals, peace. That he looked healthier, happier, free. Peace he found far away from me, and peace I had destroyed in my own life. Sometimes, I still text him. Nothing big, just small messages. A memory. Thank you. I hope you're doing okay. He never replies. Not once. But he hasn't blocked me either. And I can't tell if that's mercy or punishment. So here I am now, alone, slowly healing, learning how to live with the fallout of my own decisions. I destroyed the one man who loved me without conditions. I shattered the heart that trusted me blindly. And now he's building a world, a peaceful, beautiful one, where I simply don't exist. I wish I could erase every moment with Willie. I wish I could rewind time and choose Anderson. Choose loyalty, choose honesty, choose us. I wish I could have been the woman he deserved instead of the storm that ruined everything. But wishes don't change reality. Regret doesn't rewind time. And apologies don't rebuild homes you burned to the ground. All that's left for me now is to carry the weight of my own mistakes, the choices that cost me my marriage, my peace, my happiness, and the only man who ever truly loved me. That's my story. And this time, there is no happy ending. If this confession held your attention, make sure to subscribe to Dark Infidelity Stories, where every whisper of betrayal becomes a lesson and every shattered heart has a voice. Don't forget to like, share, and comment so more people can uncover the truth behind stories just like this one.